My name's Guy Kestevan. I've been a professional bike and kit tester for 25 years, and this is the ultimate trail fork test. Fox 36 factory, RockShox Lyrik Ultimate 2023, RockShox Lyrik Ultimate 2021. What are the strengths and weaknesses of which fork, and which one am I ultimately going to keep on my bike? Okay, so first up, Fox 36 factory on the Mondraker Rays, the benchmark fork in this category, but the most expensive as well. 1230 quid at the moment in the UK full retail, so it's 220 quid more than the new Lyrik. And if you look on Wiggle, you can get an older Lyrik for like 720, but you've got that VVC damping, you've got much more usable rebound compression range than you used to have. Interestingly, this fork is running exactly the same pressures I had in the Lyrik Ultimate. 74.5 for me, probably 74.5 kilos rider weight, so that's a nice easy calculation. But it's running two compression, two volume spacers in there to get the spring rate I was after. Let's roll that. Woo! And it's super smooth fork, but I don't know if you can hear it, it's just me. A little bit squelchy through some sections then. Just a little bit audible, but the control right through the bump range is just phenomenal. And it's got really nice small bump sensitivity climbing up here as well. So used about 70% of the stroke there, which is what I'd expect on that. I didn't send the block drop. Probably should, I just don't these days. But yeah, so that's the benchmark. Fork ridden. Let's get back up and have a swap around. Okay, so now we're on the Evil on the previous Lyrik. So 21 Lyrik Ultimate with the Charger 2.1 damper. Jeez. And yeah, oh, interesting. I mean, this is a steeper head angle than the Mondraker and the Pace slightly, but instantly you can feel it dipping more into that initial travel. But it is, oh, hello, pretty supple off the top. Actually coming up, felt relatively rigid, but, and I'm getting a bit of pump through my gloves. I mean, it is a bigger tyre, it's a Vittoria 2.6, so it's not a direct comparison, but yeah, not feeling as comfy on this as I did on the 36 for sure. I mean, it's still really well controlled, and but yeah, hasn't quite got that sensitivity, and it did feel like it was using a lot of the mid stroke, but it's not used as much of the stroke overall. And I've obviously sort of benchmark set them up before I headed down here, and yeah, just a bit more clatter and chatter coming up over the small stuff when it's unweighted around the sag point there. So it's actually not what I was expecting. I thought I was going to come onto this and it's going to feel super smooth and succulent compared to the new Lyrik. So very interested to get back onto the Pace now, see how that goes. Right, so second time in on the Lyrik Ultimate 21, because like I said, it was tapping a lot previously, felt really harsh, and rebound felt off, because it turns out Ryan was running it at 90 psi, whereas, like I say, both the other forks here running 74.5. That's the Lyrik and the 36. So I've dropped it down to 74.5, and now it's got that real smoothness, but it's really knuckling down through the travel. Saying to Ryan, it feels like, you know, when sheep like kneel down to eat the grass when they've got really fat and pregnant. It's kind of that vibe. Whoa, you can see there's not as much support there. Actually went off the inside edge of that turn. I mean, it's a lot more comfortable. I had proper hand pump by this point last time, but yeah, not as supportive, just not as precise as the 36 now. And let's have a look. I mean, travel, to be fair, progression, it's been okay, but I'm imagining if we watch the playback, we're going to definitely see it using a lot more travel, a lot more of the time. And effectively, dynamically, it's a much shorter fork, but it does feel super smooth on the roll up over stuff now with this Charger 2.1 damper with the bladder system in it, which is what, you know, RockShox have been using their longer travel forks for a long old time. So yeah, there we go. Older Lyrik Ultimate, baseline checked. I can see why Ryan was running a lot more pressure in this fork than I've been in the new one. Right, so now it's time for the new Lyrik. Oh wow, that is very different straight away. Feels so much taller in the stroke than the previous Lyrik did. But that is dramatic. And I've actually, as far as I remember, set it up to right, you know, it's middle of the dials, both sides, but wow, that's different. I mean, it is a slightly longer fork because it's 160mm travel, but wow, totally different. So much tauter off the top. Really, really precise tyre feel. I mean, its pace is pretty stiff through the front end, but you know, I would say this feels like it's got a lot more tyre pressure in it, but the support, the tracking, the placement around the corners feels much sharper, much more predictable. But again, a fair amount of pump. Oh yeah, nice pop up there as well. But definitely, I mean, it's used much less travel than the previous Lyrik. Looking at the marker there, it's only in the mid-stroke, and that definitely, you know, that chimes with how it felt down there. But wow, I love testing stuff back to back, but that is a dramatic difference. I mean, if this had a lockout lever on, I'd be thinking I'd left that on. So much more damped than the previous Lyrik. Huh. That IFP damping really dramatically different in feel. And also, this air spring's not got any volume spaces in it either. So obviously naturally more progressive, but I think a lot of it comes from the damper. Like I say, mid and high speed both sat amidships, but sheesh, that's firm. Right, so now we're going in. Whee! Woo, that was loose. So Lyrik 23 again, but this time got that damping wide open, high speed and low speed. I'm going to see what it does now. and definitely not nearly as sharp and abusive off the top as it was in that middle setting, but still definitely a very firm, kind of precise and metallic feeling fork, which is exactly how I felt about it previously and how I felt about the pike as well. That new IFP based damper definitely tighter and basically less forgiving and less comfortable, even with the taps fully open. Ooh. And the mid-stroke is amazing. Support through corners, sensational, but it's almost like a RockShox and Fox to kind of switch paces. Now let's carry on the chat. You know, RockShox used to be a really friendly fork with a big old bandwidth in terms of you didn't really know what you were doing with setup. It was still okay. Forks would always feel kind of okay, and then Fox would be the most precise, the most hardcore feeling forks. And with this latest generation, I feel like that's, oh, that was mine, definitely kind of slipped to the other degree now. Well, this feels like the fork, or, well, like I say, I mean, racers and people hitting, hey, look at the DS, people hitting stuff hard. I'm gonna love these new forks, but recreational riders, I mean, maybe just not pushing it hard enough, but this is a janky track. But no, I'm not gonna make excuses. I'm gonna say this fork doesn't feel as forgiving, certainly over small bump stuff, and it might just be this ultimate model because they got different bushings, longer bushings, more overlap, which is meant to make stiction less. But considering it's meant to have these, you know, lovely comfy buttercup elastomer dampers in there, if any, you know, it actually feels, yeah, I'm gonna say it feels harsher than the previous fork off the top, and definitely harsher than the Fox. So what I've done now, screen out any possible kind of contamination between different components, is I've taken the wheel off the Mondraker, so it's now on a Maxi sector on a Mavic alloy rim rather than a Schwalbe Wicked wheel on a Detic Swiss carbon rim. So, and it does, you know, immediately feel a couple of PSI softer and more compliant. And on stuff like this, you know, slightly softer, jankier stuff, the ability for it to stay tall, stay precise, give you loads of time feedback is just awesome, you know. I mean, it's next level control. Woo! Managed to dodge that one. So, as I say, you know, high speed stuff, really tyre ripping, maybe more flowy stuff where you really need that support and racer feedback. I mean, racers are probably going to love this. And while it's now fractionally heavier than 36, I think like 30 grams match for match, it's still about 220 quid cheaper, and yet you've got that lovely quality feel from those metal adjusters, really sweet click on the detents, and that IFP damper should stay performing as it's designed for much longer than a bladder as well. So hopefully you've got a more durable fork, but still, when you start getting into these jabby, spiky sections, just feel a few rocks in. And well, I mean, I love the way I can push and drive the front wheel, but in terms of that micro traction, definitely slipperier, because there's not just that super soft compliance on the top end that the old Lyrik had, or the new 36 has. It's just harder through the grips at the end of the day. And I guess maybe, like I say, don't know if it's the negative spring, the bushing, or just something about it, but when you start slapping stuff hard, it slaps you back. So there you go, that's the initial assessment done, at least. you know, it makes such a difference being able to get all three forks head to head, tweak around with settings, run them again and again and again against each other. I've done a bunch of other riding on this fork, so it's not that it's absolutely box fresh. And obviously testing is never finished. I'll probably hand this Lyrik off to, well, I know somebody else who already wants to try it, so hand it off to them, let them run it in a bit more, see what they think of it. But certainly having got them all three forks, that's the old Lyrik, new Lyrik and Fox 36 factory up here to Stainburn. Yes, super quiet, incredibly composed and amazingly controlled once it gets moving. Really lovely quality feel everywhere from that metal hose clip through to the damper dials. And, you know, it's a totally new approach to damping. You know, you really have got to think about what you do with it, because what you feel in the car park will be very, very different to what you feel on the trail. I mean, basically, you won't feel anything in the car park when you move those compression knobs, but out on the trail, it makes a massive difference, as you've seen in the fork shot videos. You know, it's possible to get this fork really, really high riding and rigid if you want. I mean, even in the default sort of center settings, that's how it naturally rides. And I have to say, even fully wound off, it's still, I mean, it's kind of frustrating, because most of the time, even I'm just like rolling over here to film this end bit, it feels super supple, feels creamy, it's silent, feels amazing. And when you're hitting big stuff, where you're just like ja, 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 through stuff, compressions, berms, feels absolutely outstanding. But palms, hands, it just feels like it's either a way stiffer bar or, you know, harsher grips. It's just got that real tappy, topped out feeling. And, you know, and that's exactly the same as what I was feeling on the Pike as well. So, you know, I kind of gave the benefit of the doubt on that, because they're like, oh, it shouldn't feel like that. But 2 out of 2 forks, you've got to say that this is definitely not as comfy as the previous Lyrik. I mean, yeah, it sits up in its travel way better. It doesn't need volume spaces like the old one. And the compression damping is, you know, it's more separable, it's more meaningful. But you can buy that fork for an absolute song now. So if you want a really comfy bargain, then I'd go for previous Lyrik. If you want super tight, precise, a proper tuner's fork, I would definitely go with this new Lyrik, you know, because it is, you know, it's cracking value, just over £1,000. But if you can stretch to it for all round, just, I mean, it feels weird saying this, because like I say, this used to be the RockShox thing always, was that they were the forgiving forks and Fox were the kind of ones that would punish you if you didn't get everything dialed perfectly. But it's flipped, it's definitely flipped. Fox 36 is now the most kind of affable, forgivable, easy riding fork out of all of them. And you don't even have to buy the factory either. I mean, the Performance Elite gives you, well, it gives you the same performance for about 100 quid less. But, you know, don't overlook the Fox 36 rhythm or even performance with that grip damper, because, you know, that's an amazing, really amazing fork for the money. So, anyway, look, it'll be interesting to see how the cheaper Lyriks perform as well, and the cheaper Pikes, because there are features on this fork, like the bigger bushings and stuff like that, that you don't get on the other forks, and the dampers are obviously different as well. So maybe it'll be like Fox have been for a few years, where the cheaper forks actually outperformed the more expensive ones. Testing is always interesting, always fluid, it's always changing. That's why I love doing it. So, thanks for listening to me waffle on. Hope you've enjoyed this head-to-head comparison. Massive thanks to Fox and SRAM and Pace and Mondraker and Evil for providing bikes for playing on, and all the other kit you see on here. If there's anything you see on this bike or the other bikes that you want me to go into more detail, just shout up in the comments, because that's a great way to actually get my arse into gear and give you the feedback you want. Thanks to Zero Cycling UK, thanks to Petey's Products, thanks to Crud, thanks to Sweet Protection for the knee pads, and also massive thanks to my Patreon subscribers, who really put their money where their mouth is in supporting the channel by pledging a small monthly amount, which really goes a long way to making sure I can spend time chatting to you in front of the camera. But for now, so if you really like what I'm doing, then please consider supporting me on Patreon, and you'll get exclusive, early and ad-free edits as a thank you. But for now, I've been Guy Kestevan on Guy Case TV, head-to-head testing Lyrik 21, Lyrik 23, and Fox 36 factory, to find out which is the ultimate trail fork for you.